Here with Robert. He had a sighting in his stand late in the afternoon. So Robert, just tell us what you saw.
So I was sitting in my deer stand, waiting on a deer to come by, and I smelled a musky, like sewage odor, and kind of heard some rustling behind me on the other side of the creek, and I turned around to see what was over there, and I saw something that was pretty big, hairy, and I'd seen it before, the same type of creature, a couple of years ago. At first I thought it was a guy like in a ghillie suit or whatever, which is not a good idea when you're hunting, but he was bigger than a person, or it was. I don't know if it was a he or she. And I don't know. That's about all I saw. And it was like soon as he like turned and saw me, and then he was like, "Well, I'm getting out of here," and that's what he did. He was in just as much of a hurry to get out of here as I was to get out of here. So I mean, that's pretty much all I know about it. But it's not. I don't think it was a person. Not consistent. It was bigger. Didn't move like a person. So.
And how long did you see it for?
Probably about 10 or 15 seconds this time. The first time it was only a couple of seconds. It was like you could have mistaken it for something else. But this time it was a good like 10 or 15 seconds that I saw it, and it was, I saw what I saw. So.
Yeah. And in terms of color, what do you remember?
I remember it was like a dark brown color. Not much detail, because I was not paying much attention to. I was paying attention to watching it go away so I could get out of the stand and go someplace where I felt safe. But I never felt threatened by him. I just, it's kind of eerie. It's something you don't see all the time.
So, in terms of the hair, or would you say it was more like fur?
It was kind of like a longish, hairy look to the, I mean, it was solid, but it was more like a hairy look than a fur from like a bear or something. It like hung different. And
the distance between you and this creature?
It was probably about 35, 40 yards up the hill that way.
Okay.
Through the trees, but you could still see fairly well.
And how tall do you think it might have been?
I'm thinking probably between 7.5 to 8.5 feet, and broader than I am. It was probably almost half again as broad as I am. So.
Okay. So you were out here hunting. Do you know what time of day it was, and was it daylight?
It was daylight. It was evening time, about like it is right now, late evening. Still daylight enough to be able to see. Probably, about 4 or 5 o'clock, something like that.
And you mentioned earlier there was a smell.
Yeah, it was almost like a musky skunk type smell, but it was mixed with like sewage or something. It was something that was very distinct.
Is that something that you've smelled before?
Yeah, I smelled it before on a couple of occasions when I lived out here on the property, and my wife also smelled it on one occasion. never saw anything at that point in time, but the dogs who weren't afraid of anything, that would go off running around the woods chasing coyotes all night, they got between me and my wife and the creek to kind of protect us, and they had their hackles standing up, and they were like, they looked like they didn't want anything to do with it, but they wanted to do a protective barrier between us and whatever it was.
Okay. Do you have any bear on this property?
Not that I know of. I mean, anything's possible, but they're not generally in this area.
And this was upright walking.
Yeah,
This
it was
creature
upright walking.
Was walking on 2 legs.
Yeah.
And how did it walk? Describe that.
Well, it was kind of a little bit leaned forward, not like hunched over, but leaned forward, and its arms were swinging, like so. Looked like he was trying to counterbalance himself or whatever, and he wasn't wasting any time.
Yeah.
And when it turned and looked at you, could you see its face at all?
It wasn't really long enough to notice any distinct features. It was long enough for me to know that it looked at me and said, okay, I know you're there. I'm going this way. And,
How did you feel?
It kind of creeped out.
And who did you tell afterwards?
Well, I texted one of my buddies and said, I'm done with that squatch stand. That's what we call it, because it's been seen more than once down here by me. So I'm done with that squatch stand. I'm not going back in it. So.
Any other questions?
Have you been back since?
Today.
This is it?
Just now. Yeah. My buddy was in there in that stand this morning.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't see anything, but,
Yeah. Well, thank you for bringing us here, and thanks for sharing your story. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.